Welcome to the narrated step-by-step tutorial for my painting Shaded Window. The photograph on the right is the reference and inspiration for this painting. I decided that I was going to paint it with local color using the colors that appear in the subject photograph. I begin by drawing a fairly detailed light sketch using a B pencil on 140-pound cold press Lanaquarel watercolor paper. The colors used in this painting were royal blue, cerulean blue, sap green, pyro red, cadmium red light, raw sienna, burnt sienna, and raw umber. I begin my painting by putting a wash over some of the shadowed areas using a mixture of raw sienna and cerulean blue. While the shadow covers many elements in the composition, I treat it as one large shape. And right now I'm trying to put down an even wash, and it's a continuous wash that goes across a variety of surfaces in my composition, but I'm just trying to make it one consistent rather flat wash, but I'll bring in some warm and cool tones as I paint, and those mixtures are both cerulean blue and raw sienna. The warmer mixture has more raw sienna, and the cooler mixture will have more cerulean blue. So the mixture I'm putting down right now is just a little bit warmer than what I started with, so it has just a little bit more raw sienna in it, but it's still a very neutral wash that I'm putting down. I'm using a round wash brush, and it's saturated when I load it up. I load it with as much water as it can hold, and when I touch my brush to the paper, it starts to dispense the water from the brush, and there's enough water that it leaves a bead as I apply it with the brush. As I mentioned, I'm using raw sienna and cerulean blue to create this warm and cool neutrals that I'm using in this wash and I use in this painting. And one of the things I hear from people is that when they mix the cerulean blue and raw sienna, it's difficult for them not to mix a green color. The cerulean blue that I'm using is made by Da Vinci, and it's a pigment PB36. And I have seen where mixing a cerulean blue that's made with a PB35 has given a greenish, greener mixture than what I get with mine. So that's something to be aware of if you're having trouble mixing some neutrals with your combination of cerulean blue and raw sienna. If it's a PB35 formulation, that might be part of it. Here, as I continue to bring the wash across the page, I've put the reference photo in the top right corner. And you can see how that shadow covers that left half of the composition. And as it gets further to the right in the sunlight, that shadow actually gets a little cooler and has more of a blue cast to it. I'm adding a little bit more blue to my mixture, however it's very subtle and hard to pick up on the video. I'm taking this wash up in the window area because the shadow, as I said, is coming across all the elements of the composition, and up in this area here the shadow goes over top of all the elements of the window and the curtains behind it. So this is just a continuation of the wash that I've already put down. Here I'm adding a little bit of royal blue to my mixture, so it's starting to take on a bit of a different blue note to the color. The royal blue is much darker than the cerulean blue. So far with the wash I've put down, the only colors I have used have been raw sienna, cerulean blue, and royal blue. Now I'm going to begin to put down a bit of a reddish tone in the area of the bricks, the brick wall. So I'm using a mixture of cerulean blue and cad red light, and I'll mix in a little bit of royal blue here and there, and I'll mix in a little bit of raw sienna here and there. Adding a bit of the cerulean blue to the cad red light makes it feel not such a bright red, and it just feels more like a brick color, more of a natural brick color. So as I paint this in a larger area here, you'll start to see some of the variation of color as I apply this. And I'm using a 1/2 inch flat brush right now to paint this area. So this mixture has the overall red tone of the cad red light and the cerulean blue. However, when I add some of the raw sienna and some of the royal blue, I start to get some variation of warm and cool. As I paint this wall, I'm painting it as one large shape with one wash, even though I know that there are changes in color where the mortar is in between the actual bricks themselves. This is light enough that I'll be able to go over top of that with the color that I want to represent that mortar that's in between the bricks. So I'm not painting this one brick at a time, if you will, with mortar in between. I'm painting it as one large wash. Sometimes after applying a wash, I'll just touch my hand to it just to make some texture in the wash that I've put down, just to make it a little bit more interesting. Next, I'm going to begin to paint some of the edges around the window frame and around the shutter that's on the side of the window frame itself. So that's continues to be the mixtures that I've been using all along in the shadow washes. The raw sienna, cerulean blue with a little bit of royal blue here and there. I've switched to a 1/2 inch flat brush to make some of the brush marks that represent the edges of the window frame and some of the molding around it. There are times when painting something like this, I'll use some clear packing tape as a frisket to give me a nice clean edge, and other times I'll just paint it freehand, as I am in this instance. I'm going to take a little bit of a warmer wash so it has some more raw sienna in it than what I've been using, and I'm going to paint the center of this shutter that has just a bit of a warm shadow seems to be cast on it. So I'm taking my 1/2 inch flat brush, and it's fully loaded with a mixture from my palette. It has a lot of water in it, and I'm just putting this glaze over top, and I'm going to put a little bit more of the raw sienna in it to warm it up even a little bit more. And I'm going to take that wash down the edge and then come back with a little cooler mixture and let that just gradiate together on the page. I'm going to take some of that same mixture and take it along the horizontal edge of the window frame on some of those areas there. Then I'm going to carry those warmer tones all the way across the horizontal edges. The mixtures that I've used so far, the washes I've put down, are all very much in a very light middle value, light value to light middle value. I've yet to go very dark, even middle value in anywhere in this painting yet. I'm going to begin to paint the area of the window panes in the scene right now, and because of the curtains behind them, they have a warm tone, and I'm taking my mixture of raw sienna and cerulean blue and adding just a little bit of cad red light to give it just the slightest red tone in the mixture. So still very light, but I'm painting this in between the frame of the window where the panes of glass are, where you can see through and see the curtains that are behind the glass. Here I'm finishing up painting this tone over top of the window panes. And I'll be building up other washes on top of this. And I have to take this same tone up to the top pane in the kind of in the top left also. So you can see still a lot of water in my mixture, and I'm not really rendering anything at this point. I'm just trying to lay down a value. Now I'm going to begin to paint the leaves, which come down from the top of the composition. They're a dark value, and they actually read almost as one large shape. So I'm not going to paint these so much as individual leaves, but rather I'm going to treat it like it's one large continuous shape. So as I begin to apply my wash, I'm just going to carry that wash from one shape to the next. And I'm using a mixture of sap green with pyrrole red and a little bit of royal blue in the mixture. You can see that I'm carrying that wash, even though there's some breaks in between some of the leaf shapes. I'm carrying that across the page and treating it like it's just a big shape. In addition to the royal blue, sap green, and pyrrole red, I'm going to bring in some raw umber. So at times I'll be using a mixture of royal blue, raw umber, and sap green, and other times I'll be using a mixture that's sap green with pyrrole red and a little bit of royal blue in it. Most of this shape is a dark shape. However, there are a few areas where the sun's hitting on the leaves, and it's a bit of a lighter, brighter green. In these instances where I'm painting now, I'm using sap green with just a little bit of pyrrole red in it, but not much. And here I'm working with the slightly lighter, brighter tone in combination with the dark value to give the suggestion of the light hitting the leaves. Now these curtains that are behind the window have some stripes in them, and they're just a subtle warm tone. It's a combination of warm and cool tones in the stripes, and some stripes are a little wider than others. So right now I have a mixture that has some raw sienna with a little bit of pyrrole red in them, not much, but just a touch, and then a little bit of royal blue at times. So I'm painting these stripes that are on the curtains. And as I paint these, they're not just straight lines because it's fabric and it has kind of rolls to it. So I'm trying to contour the shape of the curtain as I apply these brush marks here, just to help give a suggestion of the surface of the curtains. Now you can see the stripes that I've made, and I've added just a little bit of royal blue to the mixture to make it a little darker and a little cooler. And I'm taking a quill brush that I use that has a nice fine point, and I'm giving the indication of some more of these lines here on this other behind this other pane of glass. I'm going to take some of this tone on and put it on some of the other stripes that I've already done. And you can see that I don't just paint solid lines and all the same width. The value's a little stronger in some areas of the line than others. And as the fabric of the curtain twists a little bit, some of the stripes get a little more narrow in certain areas. And I also want to carry some of these stripes up. They continue up and behind the other panes of glass. Obviously they cover the whole window, so I need to carry that up behind it goes behind the frame, given that suggestion it's behind the frame there of the window, and then continues on the other side. And here you can see where I've added the stripes on the other side here. And once again, some of the stripes are wider than others, and you can see the stripes themselves contour the direction of the fabric of the curtain. I'm going to insert the photo again in the bottom right corner, and you can see how dark it actually is in some of the areas of the window where the curtain's kind of pushed to the side. So I'm taking a wash that is a mixture of royal blue with a little raw umber in it, and I'm painting in the area that represents the pane of glass, and I'm putting that over top of the stripes and the shadow areas that I've already painted. And those will come through because we're working with transparent watercolor, and in some instances it'll be very subtle, but you will still be able to see that. And here I'm doing the same to this other window pane. And you can see as I start to apply this darker value wash, now the frame of the window itself starts to come forward more. And the area that represents the pane of glass starts to feel more like you're looking through the window into kind of the shadowed area that's behind the window itself. And here, as I finish painting this window pane in the bottom left, I'm going to leave a few areas lighter where the sun just catches the curtain there that's behind the glass. As I work on the middle pane of glass here, you'll see that some of these shadowed areas also contour the shape of the curtain in the direction that I put the brush strokes and the way where I apply my wash. They're in a manner that suggests that the shadow you're seeing is being caused by the contours of the curtain behind the glass. And you can see those contours a little bit more in this window. It's a bit busier than the other two that I've painted so far. Initially, I put down a very light wash in the shadowed areas to help show where the whites are going to be and the lights are going to be. And now I'm at a point where I want to make that shadow much darker. So I'm coming in with a dark middle value. That's a mixture of raw sienna and royal blue. And I'm going to retrace my steps a bit here as I apply this wash over top of some of this area that I've already applied a wash, but now I'm coming in with a much darker value. And while this wash that I'm putting on is a similar value to what I applied in the window pane, you can see it has a bluer tint to it. In a few of these areas, I'm going to introduce a little more raw umber into my mixture of the raw sienna and the royal blue. But for the most part, it's a mixture of royal blue and raw sienna. But it's a fairly solid middle value. As I continue to bring this wash down, you see now how it's starting to describe a little bit more some of the horizontal surfaces in the composition. And those kind of the windowsill or the edge there of the frame there are a bit warmer on the horizontal planes than they are the vertical planes. As I get to the end of this larger shape, I'll start to take this value up into some of these smaller shapes where the shadows of the leaves overhead are being cast onto the frame and the glass of the window. So here some of these are smaller shapes, but I'm using the same mixture. And you can see it has a bit of a blue tone in the shapes that I'm painting right now. And here I've got some more to paint. And the way these shadows cover the surface, they help describe the various angles of the frame itself and which plane it's on. Now that I've applied a darker value in the shadowed area around the frame, I know that I need to go much darker in the window itself. So I'm going to come in now with a very dark mixture of royal blue and raw umber and start to paint some of those darker shadows and shapes that are behind the glass. Now as I finish up this dark shape on the left side of the curtain, I'm going to do the same in this middle pane. I'm going to take that dark mixture of royal blue and raw umber and I'm going to put in some dark valued shapes in this window pane and on this curtain. And these are going to be some of the darkest values that I'm going to have in my composition. You can see the contrast now that I'm getting between the dark darks and the light lights. And once this is dry, it's going to still be a bit lighter than what it is, but it'll be still be a very dark value. Now I'm going to move to this top left pane of glass here and carry that dark value up to where it gets to where the leaf covers the window. So still using the mixture of royal blue and raw umber. In this last pane, I've added a little bit more blue to the mixture that I'm applying than I had in the other areas of the window, the very dark values. I have a lot less raw umber and more royal blue and a little bit more water. It's still a dark value, but this shadow is more of what's going on with the shadows around the window frame. So it's got that kind of a bluish cast to it, and it's a shape that's following the flow of the fabric. And there's a few areas here on the frame that has a shadow being cast by the leaves, and it's right in the direct sunlight, so it's a bit bluer shadow, and I'm using a cerulean blue to make those. Now I'm going to begin to do some brush work on the edge of this shutter, and I want to keep a clean line on the surface of the shutter itself, so I'm taking a little bit of masking tape and putting it on the edge and just gently rubbing it. And before I put it on there, I touched it to some fabric, because sometimes masking tape can lift the paper, and if you touch it to some fabric, it takes away some of the aggressiveness of the adhesive. And I'm taking my brush now that has some of this dark mixture of royal blue with some raw umber, and I've also put some burnt sienna in it and some raw sienna, and I'm just making some dark marks there that represent the shadow and this kind of the area of the seam where the shutter is laying against the wall, and it has kind of an irregular texture too that comes out with a little bits of kind of little rust in it, so it's not going to be a straight line on the left side of the marks I'm making. It'll be a clean line on the right, but on the left it's going to be kind of irregular, because there's a little bit of texture and an unevenness to where the shutter meets the frame of the window itself. And here I'm just going to remove that tape, and you can see that I was able to keep a very clean edge on the right side of that dark valued shape that I put there, the linear shape. I'm going to put that tape down again on the edge of the area I'm about to paint, which is the area on the shutter where the angle of it casts just a kind of a triangular shadow. So I'm going to paint those the shadowed areas there on the right side of that shutter, and again, because of the masking tape, I'll maintain a clean line on the right side of these marks. So you can see I'm just filling in this kind of triangular shape here with a middle value, and it's just kind of repetitive, but it casts the shadow all the way down on all these rows of the shutter here of the boards coming across. Here I've put some tape on the left side, and I'm just making some linear marks that give the indication of the edge of the slats. So this is just a dark value using some of the royal blue and raw umber, and I break those lines up as I move across. I don't just paint straight lines from one side to the other. I just break them up a little bit as I go. And I'm going to put a dark shadow underneath the shutter itself, using the same mixtures that I've been using to make the dark marks already, the royal blue and the raw umber. And there's a hook feature that's on this shutter, and it casts a shadow on the wall behind it, so I'm painting that shadow so that it's underneath the shutter, the hook of the shutter that's hanging down. And here I'm going to move on and make some brush marks along the rest of the framework there, just giving some indication of where these boards come together by placing a dark linear mark along where the two shapes intersect. And here I'm continuing some of the linear marks to help describe some of the edges and some of the seams where different pieces of wood are coming together. Now I'm going to come back with a darker valued wash of royal blue and raw umber and start to paint a little bit a darker value in the window pane that was casting a little bit more of a darker shadow on this curtain. And I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brush, and I'm going to soften the edge of some of those areas I just painted so that it gradates a little bit more over the curtain. I'm applying a similar wash in the top pane of glass here. So this is going around the leaf shapes that I have coming down. And here I've moved to the middle pane of glass here, and I'm putting a similar wash on this area. As I apply some of the darker valued washes here, you can start to see the frame of the window starts to stand out more, and then the curtain just seems to move back in space. And as I apply this in this area, the shadow is still following the contours of the fabric of the curtains. Now I'm going to take a darker value than what I've been using, and I'm going to use a bit more raw umber in the mixture with a little bit of pyro red in it, and it's going to give me a darker value here, and I'm going to paint this shadowed area that's underneath the window frame. It's around the edge there, and underneath it, the area that would be brick. It's a much darker value, and it's a bit of a warmer tone. So I'm going back over some of the shadow I already painted, but I'm stopping right below the frame of the window. So that shadow that's carried up onto the white frame is still going to have that blue tone, and this area that's on the brick is going to be a darker tone, is a warmer tone, has some raw umber, a little bit of red in it. And here you can see me finishing off this dark value, and it's a continuation, like I said, of the other shadow, but it changes as it hits the brick. And now I'm taking that tone up the wall there beside the shutter. Now there's a shadow on the curtain here in this bottom right window pane that needs strengthened. I need a darker value on it, so I'm taking some of the same mixtures I've been using and I'm painting this shadow shape a little stronger value. Now I'm taking that darker value and bringing it along the edge of the frame. I have my quill brush here and I'm just kind of breaking it up as I go. It's not a solid line, but gives an indication that there's an edge there, then it's got a stronger shadow. Here I'm using a dark value, using my quill brush, and I'm using line just to describe some of the edges and some of the areas where the boards come together. Here I'm going to take a very dark mixture with the royal blue and raw umber and give an indication of a shadow underneath this windowsill. And it actually has a kind of an irregular edge to it. It's been banged around a little bit, so I'm going to show that in my painting. And here I've inserted again in the top right corner the reference photo, and you can kind of see how this is starting to come together. You can see the shadow that I'm painting underneath this the frame of the window, how it's a very dark value. So I'm starting to give that indication with this little wash that I'm putting down. I want to make my bricks a little bit more substantial, a little brighter red, a little darker value. And so I'm taking this mixture here with some cad red light with some cerulean blue in it, but it's just enough cerulean blue just to deepen the color a little bit. And I'm just applying that liberally with a flat brush, and it's a fairly wet mixture, and then just touching it with my hand to give it a little texture. So I have some of that light tone that I had first put on will be showing through in areas, and then I have the darker tone with a little richer color over it, and I'll carry that up the edge. Just make it a little bit stronger in a few areas. Now I'm going to do some more linear brush work to describe some of the grooves and some of the irregularities in the window frame itself. And to do that, I'm using the same colors that I've been using all along throughout this painting, combinations of royal blue, cerulean blue, raw umber, a little burnt sienna, a little raw sienna. This mixture I'm using it currently has some cerulean blue, a little raw umber in it. But if you use that combination of colors and just experiment mixing them, you'll see the variety that you can make with them. Now I'm going to put some small areas of wash in, paint some darker valued shapes here to describe the slats in this other shutter here that's on the left. And just as I did on the right, I put a piece of masking tape there so I have a nice clean edge on the right side after I'm done making these brush marks. So in addition to the little triangular shape on the edge, I'm taking a wash to give the indication of a shadowed area underneath the slats themselves to help describe those shutters. And then I'm going to take that tape off. You can see I have a nice clean edge on the right side of what I just painted. Now I'm going to paint that shutter hook that's hanging off the shutter on the right, and I'm going to paint it with a dark blue-gray. It's not actually a white shape there, it's a dark shape. So I've loaded a dark blue-gray mixture in my quill brush, and I'm just going to paint the shape of that shutter hook. Now that I've put some of these darker values in other areas of my composition, I decided that I need to go much darker with these leaf shapes that are coming in from the top of my composition. So I've got a mixture of sap green with a little pyro red and some raw umber to help darken the mixture. And I'm going to come back in over top of what I've already painted. And I'll leave a few of the areas, but for the most part, I'm just going to come back in and paint those shapes much darker. Now, as I paint this with this darker value, you can start to see where there's some stems in between the leaves. But once again, I'm treating this like one large shape, not so much as individual leaves, although they're shaped like leaves. The wash runs from one right into the next at the same value. As I come across and paint this, there's a few areas where I'll leave some of this lighter green showing through to give the suggestion of sunlight hitting it. And here I reached the end of these leaf shapes, and you can see how for the most part it's much darker going across, except for a few areas where I left the lighter green tone. Now I'm going to take a mixture with some raw sienna with just a little bit of raw umber in it, and I'm going to paint this warmer tone on the horizontal surfaces of the window frame, because that window frame is catching some of the sunlight and it's got a little bit of dirt that's built up on it, and it has a warmer tone than some of the other areas where it has a cast shadow. So there's a few different edges that have that situation. Now I'm going to take my brush and make just a few marks here and there with a change in value to give the suggestion of some dings and some scuffs on this kind of weathered window frame. So there's just some marks that I'm making, some kind of like calligraphic marks, just to give that suggestion of some scrapes and some dings in the surface of the window frame. In here I'm going to make a few of those marks with this little bit of a warmer tone. Just a few marks here and there to suggest the scrapes and the dings. I'm going to put a white mat on this so you can get a good look at it. And there's my painting, Shaded Window. I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't already, be sure to check out my online learning center, where from one location you can link to my YouTube channel, find out information about my workshop, and see all my online courses. The link will appear in the top right corner of the screen. If you click on it, it will take you to the Online Learning Center homepage. And as always, if you have questions about my materials, you can go to the studio page of my website, rsurowiczart.com. And if you have questions, you can email me at contactrsurowiczart@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.